The first light of dawn crept through the lace curtains of Evelyn Harper's cozy ranch-style home in Seattle's quiet Greenwood neighborhood. At 65, Evelyn had mastered the art of savoring these mornings, her sacred ritual after decades of wrangling rambunctious third-graders. Retired now for 5 years, she padded across the worn oak floors in her fuzzy slippers, the scent of freshly brewed Kona coffee wafting from the Mr. Coffee machine on the counter. Her kitchen was a time capsule of family life, faded photos of her late husband, Tom, pinned to the fridge with magnets from their Yellowstone road trip, a ceramic mug painted by her son Jake during his kindergarten days, chipped but cherished. Evelyn settled at the scarred wooden table, her silver-streaked bob catching the soft glow of the pendant light. She unlocked her phone, the Wells Fargo app loading with its familiar blue glow. Retirement had taught her vigilance. Every penny of her modest pension and Tom's life insurance payout counted. She scrolled through notifications, sipping the dark roast that warmed her from the inside out. Bills paid, automatic deposits confirmed. Then her thumb froze mid-swipe. There it was, a transaction alert timestamped 4:17 p.m. yesterday, $7,032.47 at Tiffany & Co. downtown. Her breath hitched, coffee mug clattering against the saucer. $7,000? She hadn't set foot in a jewelry store since Tom's 40th birthday, when she'd splurged on a simple gold watch. Heart pounding like a bass drum in her chest, Evelyn tapped the details. Debit card. Her debit card. The one she'd reluctantly shared with Jake last year for emergencies only after his latest layoff from the auto shop. "Your family, Mom," he'd said, those earnest blue eyes, so like Tom's, pleading. She'd caved, as always. "Jake!" Her voice echoed through the empty house, sharper than intended. No answer. The basement stairs creaked faintly. He was probably still snoring off last night's video game marathon. Evelyn's mind raced. Jake was 28, her only child, a lanky echo of the boy who'd once built forts in the living room. But adulthood had been rough on him. High school dropout, string of dead-end jobs, drifting through life like Seattle fog. Lately, though, he'd been buzzing about Sarah, his girlfriend of 6 months. A sweet girl, barista at that hipster spot on Finney Ridge, with tattoos and dreams of opening her own cafe. Engagement? No, not yet. Not on her dime. She stormed down the stairs, the air growing cooler and mustier with each step. The basement door swung open to reveal Jake's domain. Posters of classic cars peeling from cinderblock walls, a tangle of charging cords snaking across the carpet, empty energy drink cans forming a precarious pyramid on his desk. He lay sprawled on the futon, one arm flung over his eyes, oblivious to the world above. "Jake Harper, get up!" Evelyn yanked the comforter back, her voice a whip-crack honed from 20 years of playground supervision. He bolted upright, tousled brown hair sticking out like a startled porcupine, blinking in confusion. "Mom? What? It's barely light out." "What have you done?" She thrust the phone under his nose, the screen glaring with the damning proof. His eyes widened, color draining from his face. For a split second, guilt flickered, raw, unmistakable. Then it vanished, replaced by a defensive hunch of shoulders. It's for Sarah." He rubbed his neck, avoiding her gaze. "We're getting engaged, you know? Something real special. That sapphire ring? It was her birthstone and all." Evelyn's world tilted. Engaged? With her money? The audacity hit like a northwest downpour, cold, relentless. "You used my card without asking? $7,000, Jake. That's my emergency fund, my security." Her hands trembled, visions of rising property taxes and that leaky roof flashing like warning lights. Tom had always handled the finances. She'd trusted him, and now this boy, man really, had shattered that fragile trust. Jake swung his legs off the futon, pulling on a faded mariner's hoodie. "Come on, Mom, you always save families everything. Dad would have understood. Sarah's the one. I'm finally settling down." His voice cracked, a plea wrapped in entitlement. But Evelyn saw the cracks in her armor, the evasion in his eyes, the way he wouldn't meet hers. This wasn't just a ring. It was a symptom of years of enabling, of pouring love into a vessel that leaked resentment. She turned on her heel, climbing the stairs with deliberate calm, though her pulse thundered. Back in the kitchen, she opened the banking app again, fingers flying. Freeze account. Confirm. Done. The digital lock clicked into place, a small act of rebellion in her unraveling morning. Jake's footsteps followed, hesitant now. "Mom, what did you do?" She faced him, staling her gaze. "You crossed a line, son. Fix this or learn what it means to stand on your own." As he opened his mouth to protest, Evelyn wondered if this was the wake-up call he'd needed, or the spark that would burn their fragile bond to ash. Jake trudged up the basement stairs like a man heading to the principal's office. Hoodie half-zipped, socks mismatched. The kitchen smelled of coffee and tension. Evelyn stood by the sink, arms folded tight across her chest, the phone still clutched in one hand like evidence in a courtroom drama. He stopped at the threshold, rubbing the back of his neck, the same nervous tell he'd had since middle school. "Okay, Mom, look, I can explain." Evelyn didn't sit, she didn't offer him coffee, she just waited, the silence heavier than any Seattle rainstorm. Jake exhaled, leaning against the doorframe. "It's for Sarah. I picked out the ring yesterday. A sapphire surrounded by diamonds, classic, timeless, you know. Her birthstone." His voice softened, almost dreamy. "She's been dropping hints for weeks. Every time we walk past that Tiffany's window downtown, she slows down, presses her hand to the glass like a kid at a candy store. I wanted to make it real, surprise her, get down on one knee at Gasworks Park with the city lights behind us." Evelyn's stomach twisted. Gasworks Park, where Tom had proposed to her 35 years ago? Jake knew that story by heart. "You spent $7,000 of my money, son. My money, Jake, not yours," without a word. He shifted his weight, eyes flicking to the floor. "I was gonna pay you back. I've got that interview next week at the dealership on Aurora, sales position, good commission, and Sarah's tips have been solid. We'd figure it out." He tried a lopsided grin, the one that used to get him out of chores. "Come on, Mom. You always said family helps family. Dad would have wanted me to go big for the girl I love." The mention of Tom landed like a slap. Evelyn felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Your father worked double shifts at the mill to put food on this table. He didn't steal from his mother to buy pretty things." She stepped closer, close enough to see the faint stubble on his jaw, the dark circles under his eyes. "You're 28 years old, Jape. You live in my basement rent-free, you eat my groceries, and now you take $7,000 like it's pocket change?" Jake's grin vanished, his shoulders hunched. "I didn't think you'd notice right away. I figured I'd tell you after she said yes, show you the ring, make it a happy thing." Evelyn laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Happy? You thought I'd be happy you drained my savings for a ring you can't afford?" He straightened, a flash of defiance in his eyes. "You've got plenty, Mom. Dad's insurance, your pension. You don't even go anywhere. That money just sits there while I'm trying to build a life." The words hung in the air like smoke. Evelyn felt something inside her crack, a hairline fracture a decade in the making. All the years of covering his overdrafts, co-signing loans he defaulted on, letting him move back home just until he got on his feet, she'd told herself it was love. Now it felt like quicksand. She turned away, staring out the window at the gray December sky dripping over the neighbor's cedar fence. "I froze the account," she said quietly. Jake's face went slack. "What?" "I told you this morning. It's frozen until we sort this out." "Sort this out?" He laughed bitterly, pacing like a caged animal. "I've got the ring in my pocket. Sarah's expecting me to pick her up for dinner, and now I can't even buy $20 of gas? You're sabotaging everything." "I'm protecting what's mine," Evelyn said quietly. $7,000, Jake. That's not pocket money." He stopped pacing, glaring at her. "You've got tens of thousands sitting in that account, doing nothing. You don't travel, you don't spend it on yourself. Why can't you let me have this one thing? Sarah's the best thing that's ever happened to me." Evelyn felt the familiar tug of guilt. the one that always surfaced when he played the best thing card. But she held her ground. Because it's not yours to take. Because real love doesn't start with theft. Jake's face darkened. He snatched his keys again, jaw clenched. Fine, live in your little fortress of cash. See if I care. He stormed toward the door, then paused, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. You're gonna regret this, Mom. You're gonna be all alone with your precious money. The door slammed a second time that day, harder. A picture frame on the wall rattled loose and tilted crooked. Evelyn sank onto the couch, hands trembling. She told herself she'd done the right thing, finally, but the house felt colder than the rain outside. Later that evening, as she microwaved leftover lasagna and ate in silence at the table, her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Jake. A single thumbs-down emoji. Then nothing. She stared at it until the screen went dark. Upstairs in his basement room, Jake sat on the edge of his futon, the velvet ring box heavy in his palm. Sarah's excited texts lit up his phone. Can't wait for tonight, babe. Where are we going? He ignored them, scrolling instead through state agency websites on his laptop. His eyes narrowed as he landed on the Adult Protective Services intake form. Anonymous reporting. Easy fields to fill. He hesitated only a moment, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then he began typing. Evelyn woke to the sound of rain drumming on the roof, the kind of steady Seattle downpour that made the world feel muffled and far away. It was Tuesday morning, 2 days since Jake's second dramatic exit. He hadn't come home Sunday night, and his phone went straight to voicemail. She told herself it was fine. He was probably crashing on Sarah's couch in Capitol Hill, sulking like a teenager. She padded to the kitchen in her robe, reheating yesterday's coffee and scrolling through the local news on her tablet. The house was too quiet. No bass thumping from the basement, no clatter of Jake raiding the fridge at odd hours. For the first time in years, Evelyn felt the weight of her own company, and it wasn't entirely unpleasant. The landline rang at 9:17 a.m., shrill and insistent. She rarely used it anymore, but kept it for emergencies. The caller ID read WSST DSHS. Hello? Good morning, ma'am. This is Adult Protective Services. May I speak with Evelyn Harper? Her stomach dropped. This is she. My name is Carla Ruiz. I'm calling because we received an anonymous report alleging possible elder financial abuse and self-neglect at this address. The woman's voice was calm, professional, the kind honed from years of difficult conversations. We're required to follow up on all reports. Are you safe right now, Miss Harper? Evelyn gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles whitening. I'm perfectly safe. I'm healthy. I live alone. Well, mostly alone. And I manage my own affairs just fine. I understand this can be alarming. The report mentioned concerns about hoarding of cash, refusal to purchase food, and possible cognitive decline. We'd like to schedule a visit to verify your well-being. Hoarding cash? Refusal to purchase food? Her mind raced back to Jake's parting words. You're gonna regret this, Mom. You're gonna be all alone with your precious money. The pieces clicked with sickening clarity. Anonymous report, the exact phrases he'd thrown at her during their fights. You hoard every penny. You're too cheap to even buy decent groceries. Who made this report? She asked, voice tight. I'm sorry, reports are confidential, but we take them seriously regardless of source. Evelyn closed her eyes, breathing through the surge of anger and betrayal. Her own son had weaponized the state against her for a ring for $7,000. When would you like to come? She heard herself say, surprising herself with the steadiness. Tomorrow morning work? Around 10? That's fine. She hung up and stood motionless for a long minute, rain streaking the window like tears. Then she walked to the basement door and opened it. The air smelled of stale energy drinks and unwashed laundry. Jake's room looked exactly as he'd left it, bed unmade, laptop still open on the desk. She sat in his gaming chair and opened the browser history. The top entry, timestamped Sunday night, Washington State Adult Protective Services online reporting. Her chest tightened. There it was, proof in glowing pixels. She took a photo with her phone, hands shaking. Upstairs, again, she poured the cold coffee down the sink and made a fresh pot, strong, black, the way Tom used to drink it. She sat at the kitchen table and stared at the framed photo of the three of them, her, Tom, and a gap-toothed 10-year-old Jape at the Space Needle. "I tried to protect you," she whispered to the empty room, "and now you've turned the system on me." Tomorrow, a stranger would walk through her home, judging her pantry, her fridge, her life, because her son decided revenge was worth more than family. Evelyn straightened her shoulders. Fine, let them come. She had nothing to hide and everything to fight for. Wednesday morning arrived with a break in the clouds, a rare winter sunlight spilling across Evelyn's front yard like an unwelcome spotlight. It had been up since 6, scrubbing counters that didn't need it, vacuuming rugs already clean, and stocking the fridge with fresh groceries from Safeway the night before. If the state wanted to inspect her life, they'd find it spotless. At exactly 10 a.m., a silver Prius pulled into the driveway. A woman in her 40s stepped out, dark hair and a neat ponytail, sensible coat, clipboard in hand. Maria Gonzalez, the social worker, introduced herself with a warm but professional smile as Evelyn opened the door. "Thank you for seeing me on short notice, Miss Harper. This shouldn't take long." Evelyn led her inside, the scent of lemon polish hanging in the air. Maria's eyes swept the living room, bookshelves lined with classics and gardening magazines, Tom's old recliners still indented from years of use, family photos in simple frames. Nothing chaotic, nothing neglected. They moved to the kitchen. Maria opened the fridge without asking, protocol, Evelyn supposed, and noted the milk, eggs, yogurt, fresh produce in the crisper. "Looks well stocked," she said, jotting something down. "Pantry's through here," Evelyn offered, opening the door to reveal neatly labeled shelves, canned goods in rows, pasta boxes stacked, a full bag of rice. No empty shelves, no expired food. Maria nodded approvingly. "No signs of food insecurity." She glanced around. "And the house is very tidy. No hoarding concerns I can see." Evelyn managed a tight smile. "I like things organized. Teaching habit." They sat at the kitchen table. Maria set her clipboard down. "The report mentioned possible financial exploitation and self-neglect. Can you tell me about your situation? Who lives here with you?" Evelyn took a steadying breath and laid it out. The $7,000 unauthorized charge, freezing the account, Jake's anger, the suspicious timing of the report. She slid printed bank statements across the table, highlighting the Tiffany's transaction. "I believe my son made the call, out of retaliation." Maria's expression softened, but she stayed neutral. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" "Not direct proof," Evelyn admitted, "but he has access to my computer when I'm out, and the phrases in the report, hoarding cash, refusing food, those are things he's said to me during arguments." Maria made more notes. "We see this sometimes, adult children frustrated over money. It's painful for everyone." She paused. "We'll need to speak with him too, and there may be follow-up visits. But from what I'm seeing today, your home environment is safe and healthy." As Maria stood to leave, she added gently, "You're doing fine, Miss Harper, really." After the Prius pulled away, Evelyn stood on the porch, watching it disappear down the block. The sunlight felt cold on her skin. The house had passed inspection, but the invasion lingered, like fingerprints on every surface of her life. She went inside, locked the door, and for the first time in days, allowed herself to cry. The days after Maria's visit blurred into a tense quiet. Jake still hadn't come home, and Evelyn's texts, simple check-ins, like, "Are you okay?" went unread. She kept busy, but the house felt haunted by unanswered questions. At night, she lay awake listening for his key in the door, the way she had when he was a teenager, sneaking in past curfew. One gray Saturday, unable to stand the uncertainty any longer, Evelyn descended into the basement. The air was stale, thick with the scent of old pizza boxes and Axe body spray. Jake's room looked like a tornado had hit, clothes draped over every surface, empty Red Bull cans glinting in the dim light from a cracked window. She told herself she was just tidying up, but really she was looking for answers. She started with the desk. Beneath the pile of unopened mail, mostly overdue notices, she found a stack of receipts. Dinner at fancy spots downtown, Canlis, the Pink Door, places way beyond a barista and an unemployed mechanic's budget. One receipt from a casino in Tulalip caught her eye. $800 lost in a single night last month. Her chest tightened. Next, the nightstand drawer. Inside, a crumpled pack of cigarettes, loose change, and Jake's old phone, the one he'd lost 6 months ago. Curiosity overrode guilt. She powered it on, no passcode, he'd never been careful. The Messages app opened to a thread with Sarah. Sarah, babe, we need that ring soon. My friends are all engaged now. Jake, working on it. Mom's account is loaded. Sarah, just do it. She owes you for all the years you took care of her after Dad died. Jake, yeah, she's hoarding it anyway. Evelyn's breath caught. Further up, older texts. Jake promising Sarah trips to Hawaii, a new car, once Mom comes through. Then, loan apps denied, gambling site bookmarks, a screenshot of Evelyn's bank balance taken when she'd left her laptop open. She sat back on the futon, the phone heavy in her hand. All those years, she'd thought she was helping, protecting him from the world's harsh edges after Tom's cancer took him too young. She'd paid his traffic tickets, covered rent when he got evicted, let him move back home again and again. Spoiled him, maybe, shielded him from consequences. Upstairs, she poured a glass of Merlot, something she rarely did alone, and stared at Tom's photo on the mantel. "Where did I go wrong?" she whispered. The man in the frame smiled back, forever 48, forever silent. That night, Evelyn opened a new document on her computer and began typing everything. Dates, amounts, screenshots from the phone, evidence. Not for revenge, for clarity. For the first time, she saw Jake not as her little boy, but as a man who'd learned to manipulate the one person who would never turn him away. Outside, the rain started again, soft and relentless. Evelyn closed the curtains, turned off the lights, and let the tears come. Grief, anger, guilt, they mixed like the Puget Sound currents, deep and unpredictable. Tomorrow, she'd call Rita, her neighbor, the retired lawyer. Tonight, she mourned the version of her son she'd clung to for too long. Evelyn stood on Rita's Kowalski's front porch the following Monday, clutching a manila folder thick with printouts, bank statements, receipts, screenshots from Jake's old phone. The December air nipped at her cheeks, but the real chill came from inside her chest. She hadn't slept well since discovering the gambling losses and those damning texts. Rita opened the door in a University of Washington hoodie and yoga pants, silver hair pulled into a messy bun. At 71, the retired family law attorney still moved like someone who could outrun half the neighborhood. "Ev, honey, get in here. You look like you haven't eaten since Thanksgiving." The Kowalski's kitchen smelled of cinnamon and fresh-baked banana bread. Rita poured 2 mugs of English breakfast tea, strong the way Evelyn liked it, and slid a plate of warm slices across the oak table. Evelyn spilled everything: the ring, the frozen account, the APS report, the basement discoveries. She spread the documents like evidence in a trial. Rita listened without interrupting, eyes sharp behind her bifocals, occasionally nodding or murmuring, the way lawyers do when they're cataloging facts. When Evelyn finished, voice hoarse, Rita leaned back and exhaled. "This isn't just entitlement, Ev. This is manipulation, plain and simple. Financial abuse of an elder, even when it's family. Washington State takes it seriously." Evelyn flinched at the word elder. "He's my son, Rita. I can't just—" "You're not just anything," Rita cut in gently. "You're a widow who spent 10 years keeping that boy afloat, and now he's trying to sink you to stay above water." She tapped the folder. "You've got solid documentation. Unauthorized transaction, clear fraud, the APS report timing, suspicious as hell. You need to protect yourself." "What do I do? Sue my own child?" "Not yet. First, change every password, every PIN. Get that debit card canceled and a new one issued. Remove him from any joint access. Then file a police report for the unauthorized charge, non-emergency line. Ask for a fraud investigator. It creates a paper trail. Evelyn's tea had gone cold. He'll hate me. He already crossed that bridge when he called APS on you, Rita said bluntly. Hate's a strong word, but resentment? That's been simmering a while. You setting boundaries now might be the only thing that saves him, and you. Rita reached across the table, squeezing Evelyn's hand. You're not abandoning him. You're stopping the enabling. There's a difference. That afternoon, Evelyn went home and did exactly as instructed. New bank cards ordered, passwords changed to long random strings, a fraud alert placed on her credit. She sat at the computer a long time before dialing the Seattle PD non-emergency line. When the officer took her report, his voice was kind but matter-of-fact. Case number assigned, investigation to follow. She hung up and stared at the quiet house. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like space to breathe, to decide who she wanted to be when this storm passed. Rita's parting words echoed as Evelyn started a fresh journal on the kitchen table, dating the first entry, document everything. You're not the villain here. And for the first time, Evelyn almost believed it. It was a drizzly Thursday afternoon when Evelyn heard the familiar rumble of Jake's Subaru pulling into the driveway. She'd been pruning her neglected hydrangeas in the front yard, bundled in a rain jacket and garden clogs, trying to keep her hands busy and her mind quiet. The engine cut off, and there he was, stepping out with shoulders slumped, the velvet Tiffany box clutched in one hand like a guilty secret. He spotted her immediately and hesitated on the wet walkway, rain dripping from his hood. Mom, can we talk? Evelyn wiped her hands on a rag and nodded toward the covered porch. They sat on the old wooden bench Tom had built years ago, the one that creaked under any weight. Jake wouldn't meet her eyes, staring instead at the box in his lap. I tried to return it, he started, voice low. Went back to the store this morning. They said no refunds without the original cardholder present and the account active. He finally looked up, a sheepish half-smile flickering. Sarah loved it, Mom, like really loved it, but we can't keep it, not like this. Evelyn felt a flicker of something, relief, maybe, or vindication, but mostly exhaustion. So what's your plan, Jake? He shrugged, opening the box to reveal the ring nestled in satin, a sparkling sapphire flanked by diamonds, elegant and extravagant. I thought maybe you could unfreeze the account just long enough to process the return, get your money back, then we're square. The request landed like a punch. After everything, the APS report, the police filing she'd quietly made, the nights she'd spent wondering if her son even cared, she was supposed to unlock her finances again so he could clean up his mess? No, she said simply. Jake blinked. No? Mom, come on. It's $7,000. You'll get it all back. I said no. She kept her voice calm, the way she once corrected misbehaving students. You bought it without permission. You deal with the consequences. Call the store, explain the situation, work out a store credit, whatever they'll allow, but my account stays frozen. His face flushed red, the box snapping shut in his fist. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me screw up, making me beg. I'm not enjoying any of this, Evelyn replied, meeting his glare. I'm done fixing things for you. Jake stood abruptly, pacing the small porch. You know APS is still investigating you, right? Because of the way you're handling money, hoarding it, cutting me off. One call from me and… There it was, the confirmation spoken aloud. Evelyn's heart hardened. You already made that call, didn't you? He froze, mouth opening and closing like a fish. The silence stretched, broken only by rain tapping the gutter. Yeah, he muttered finally. I did. I was mad. You were ruining everything. Evelyn stood too, smaller than him but unyielding. Get off my porch, Jake, and take that ring with you. He stared at her for a long moment, eyes glassy, then turned and stormed down the steps. The Subaru roared to life and screeched away, leaving tire tracks in the muddy gravel. Evelyn sat back down on the bench, the damp seeping through her jeans. She didn't cry this time. She just watched the rain wash the driveway clean and felt, for the first time in weeks, a small but steady sense of resolve settling in her bones. A week blurred into 2, then 3. Jake didn't come home. His Subaru never rattled into the driveway, and the basement stayed untouched, a frozen snapshot of his chaotic life. Evelyn left the door unlocked at first, half expecting him to slink back with apologies. But the days grew colder, the Christmas lights on neighboring houses twinkling like accusations, and still no word. The state sent an official letter on heavyweight paper, a mandatory follow-up interview scheduled for early January at the DSHS office in Northgate. Evelyn folded it neatly and tucked it into her new journal, the one Rita had suggested. Page after page now filled with dates, emotions, copies of bank alerts, and the police report number from the fraud filing. She tried texting Jake once more. "We need to talk. The state wants to interview us both." 3 gray check marks. Delivered. No reply. Instead, silence. Then a single message popped up from an unknown number. "Sarah." Sarah said quietly as Evelyn slid into the opposite seat. Evelyn ordered black coffee, no pleasantries. "What did you want to say?" Sarah twisted her napkin. "Jake's not okay. He barely sleeps. He pawned some stuff for rent money. He says you've cut him off completely, that you're trying to ruin us." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "He stole $7,000 from me, Sarah, then reported me to Adult Protective Services when I protected what was left." Sarah's eyes widened. "He told me you overreacted, that you've always controlled the money and now you're punishing him for wanting a future." Evelyn leaned forward. "Did he tell you about the gambling debts, the casino receipts, the texts where you both talked about how I owe him?" Sarah went pale, looking down. I didn't know it was that bad. I thought he was borrowing." "It wasn't borrowing if he never asked." Evelyn's voice stayed low, but steel ran through it. "I loved you, Sarah. Thought you were good for him. But you pushed for that ring, too." Sarah's lip trembled. "I just wanted to feel secure. My parents kicked me out at 18. Jake promised things would be different." She wiped her eyes. "He's crashing hard now. I'm scared he'll do something stupid." Evelyn felt the old pull, worry, guilt, the instinct to rescue, but she held it at bay. "Then help him get real help, not my money. Therapy, a job, responsibility." Sarah nodded slowly, defeated. "I don't think he'll listen to me anymore." They parted in the rain, Sarah hurrying to the bus stop, Evelyn walking the long way home through wet streets lined with holiday windows. The divide felt wider than ever, her son on one side of a canyon, her on the other, both too proud or hurt to build a bridge. That night, Evelyn joined an online support group for parents of estranged adult children. She typed her first post anonymously. "When do you stop feeling like the villain for finally saying no?" The replies trickled in, dozens of strangers who understood. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel utterly alone. January 8th dawned crisp and cold, the kind of Seattle winter day where the Olympics sparkled snow-capped across the Sound. Evelyn arrived at the DSHS office in Northgate 20 minutes early, dressed in her best navy plants and the pearl necklace Tom had given her for their 30th anniversary. She carried a thick binder, bank records, police report, journal entries, everything Rita had coached her to organize. The conference room was sterile, beige walls, fluorescent lights, a long table with bottled water and notepads. Maria Gonzalez was already there, along with 2 other caseworkers and a supervisor named Mr. Patel. They greeted her politely, but Evelyn's pulse hammered as she took her seat. Mr. Patel said, "We're waiting on your son." 10 minutes later, Jake shuffled in, looking like he hadn't slept properly in weeks. His hair was unkempt, a patchy beard shadowed his jaw, and he wore the same hoodie from the porch confrontation. He wouldn't meet Evelyn's eyes as he sat across from her, flanked by an empty chair. The hearing began with Maria summarizing the initial report and her home visit findings: no evidence of self-neglect, well-maintained residence, adequate food. Then Mr. Patel turned to Evelyn. Miss Harper, please share your perspective. Evelyn opened her binder, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She walked them through the timeline, the unauthorized $7,000 charge, freezing the account, Jake's anger, the suspiciously timed APS report. She slid copies of statements across the table, pointing to the Tiffany's transaction. I believe this was retaliation. Mr. Patel nodded, making notes. Mr. Harper, your turn. Jake leaned forward, eyes red-rimmed. Look, I messed up with the card, I admit that. But my mom's always controlled the money. After Dad died, she got the insurance, the pension, everything. I've been trying to build a life, get engaged, and she just cuts me off. She's unstable sometimes, hoards cash, gets paranoid. I called APS because I was worried. Evelyn's heart sank at the performance, tears welling on cue, voice cracking. The panel listened gravely. Then the door opened. Sarah stepped in, unannounced, clutching a folder of her own. I'm sorry I'm late. May I speak? Mr. Patel frowned, but nodded. Sarah sat beside Jake, who looked panicked. I can't stay silent anymore, she began, voice shaking. Jake pressured me into this whole thing. He said his mom owed him, early inheritance, whatever. He forged the charge, then when she froze the account, he filled out that APS form online at my apartment. I saw him do it. She slid printouts across, texts where Jake bragged about teaching her a lesson. The room went still, Jake's face drained of color. Sarah, shut up, he hissed under his breath, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Sarah didn't flinch. She pushed the folder farther across the table, toward Mr. Patel. I have screenshots, texts where he talked about using the ring money to pay off bookies, one from the night he bought it. Once Mom's card clears, we're square with Tony. Tony's the guy he owes $3,000 to from poker games up in Everett. Mr. Patel opened the folder methodically, flipping through printouts. Maria Gonzalez leaned in, eyebrows raised. Evelyn sat motionless, watching her son unravel in slow motion. Jake tried to laugh it off. She's lying. We broke up. She's bitter, trying to get back at me. Sarah's voice cracked but stayed firm. We didn't break up until last night, Jake, when I found the collection notices in your backpack. Threats. Real ones. She turned to the panel. He told me his mom would never press charges, that she'd cave like always. When she didn't, he panicked and doubled down with the APS report. I watched him fill it out on my laptop, even helped him word it so it sounded worse, refusing food, hoarding cash. I thought it would just scare her into giving in. I was wrong. Evelyn felt the words like individual blows. Her son had not only betrayed her, he'd recruited his girlfriend into the scheme. Evelyn looked at Jake, searching for the boy who used to bring her dandelions from the yard. All she saw was a stranger, cornered and desperate. Why? Evelyn asked, quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken since Sarah entered. Jake finally met her eyes. For a second, something raw flickered. Shame, maybe. Fear. Then it hardened. Because you had it all, Mom. Dad's money, the house, the pension, and I got nothing but a basement and lectures. You act like you're the victim here.
Mr. Patel cleared his throat. Mr. Harper, making a false report to state agencies is a serious matter. Combined with the admitted unauthorized transaction and these new allegations of gambling-related debt, we'll be referring this to law enforcement for further investigation. Jake's bravado cracked. Wait, you can't. We can, Mr. Patel said evenly. Ms. Harper, the original Protective Services case against you is closed, unsubstantiated. You're free to go. Evelyn gathered her binder, legs unsteady as she stood. Sarah rose too, hovering uncertainly. Ms. Harper? Evelyn? I'm so sorry. I should have said something sooner. Evelyn looked at her, at this young woman who'd once sat at her kitchen table eating homemade lasagna and laughing about wedding Pinterest boards. You should have, she said simply. Then she walked out without looking back. In the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Evelyn leaned against the cool cinder block wall, breathing deep. The betrayal wasn't just Jake's anymore. It was layered, shared, calculated. But beneath the hurt, something else stirred. Clarity. The fog of guilt she'd carried for years was lifting. This wasn't her failure as a mother. It was the consequences of choices. His choices. She straightened, smoothed her coat, and stepped into the bright January daylight. For the first time in months, the cold air felt clean. 2 weeks after the hearing, Evelyn sat in the Seattle Police Department's North Precinct, a squat brick building off Aurora Avenue. The fraud investigator, Detective Ramirez, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with a tight bun and kind eyes, spread Evelyn's binder across the desk like a deck of cards. "You've done half my job for me, Ms. Harper." She flipped through timestamps, receipts, and Sarah's screenshots. "Unauthorized use of a debit card over $5,000? That's felony theft in Washington. Add the false APS report, and we've got probable cause." Evelyn nodded, hands folded in her lap. She'd rehearsed this moment with Rita, but the words still felt heavy. "I don't want him in prison. I just want him to stop." Detective Ramirez softened. "I get it. Family cases are the hardest, but consequences might be the only thing that gets through to him now." That afternoon, Jake was picked up at Sarah's apartment for questioning. He spent 6 hours in an interview room before being booked on suspicion of second-degree theft and filing a false police report, a gross misdemeanor. Bail was set at $5,000. Sarah didn't answer his collect call. Rita met Evelyn at the courthouse the next morning when Jake was arraigned. He appeared via video from jail, orange jumpsuit stark against the cinder-block background, looking smaller than Evelyn had ever seen him. The judge entered a not guilty plea on his behalf and imposed a no-contact order. Jake couldn't come within 500 feet of Evelyn or her home. Evelyn's stomach twisted as the screen went dark. Rita squeezed her arm. "You didn't put him there. His choices did." Back home, Evelyn applied for a permanent anti-harassment order. The paperwork felt cold and clinical, listing dates of intimidation, the porch confrontation, the APS retaliation. A court date was set for late February. That evening, a process server delivered the restraining order papers to Jake at the county jail. He called Evelyn one last time from the facility phone before the no-contact order kicked in. "Mom, it's me." His voice cracked like a teenager's. "I know I'm not supposed to call, but I need to say I'm sorry, for real this time." Silence stretched, broken only by distant traffic on her end. "I hit bottom," he continued, words tumbling out. "Lost Sarah, lost everything. The gambling, it wasn't just fun anymore. It controlled me. I blamed you, but it was me. All me." Evelyn's voice was quiet, guarded. "I'm listening. I'm starting treatment. Court-ordered, but I want it. Gamblers Anonymous, meetings in Fremont, and therapy. I see now how I used you, took advantage because you'd always bail me out." He choked up. "I don't expect forgiveness. Just needed you to know I'm trying to change." Another long pause. Then, "I'm glad you're getting help, Jake, truly. But trust takes time, and boundaries stay until they're earned back." He got it. He whispered, "I love you, Mom." "I love you too," she said softly. "Take care of yourself." The line clicked dead, time limit reached. Evelyn hung up and sat in the quiet living room, Tom's old recliner empty beside her. Outside, a light February snow dusted the evergreen trees. She thought of the boy who used to beg for one more story at bedtime, now facing felony charges because she'd finally said enough. Rita's words echoed. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. For the first time, Evelyn believed it. The legal wheels were turning, and there was no turning them back. Whatever came next, diversion program, probation, trial, she'd face it without enabling him anymore. She poured herself a small glass of Merlot, raised it toward Tom's photo on the mantel, and whispered, "We're going to be okay." Then she turned off the lights and went to bed, the house silent, but no longer heavy. February settled over Seattle like a damp gray blanket, the kind of weather that made Evelyn crave the indoors. With Jake out of the house and the no-contact order in place, her ranch-style home felt both too large and strangely liberating. The basement door stayed closed, his clutter untouched, a reminder she wasn't ready to face. Mornings, she lingered over coffee at the kitchen table, staring at the backyard where Tom used to grill burgers every 4th of July. She'd spent 10 years since his death pouring everything into Jake, paying his fines, excusing his failures, calling it love. Now, with the legal battle looming and APS cleared, she faced a question she'd avoided for years.
Who was Evelyn Harper without her son's chaos? She started small. One chilly morning, she pulled on gardening gloves and tackled the overgrown rose bushes along the fence. The thorns snagged her sleeves, but the rhythm of clipping felt grounding. She hauled bags of mulch from the hardware store, her arms aching in a way that reminded her she was still strong. The community center down the street became her next refuge. She signed up for a pottery class on a whim, her fingers relearning how to shape clay into wobbly bowls. The instructor, a cheerful retiree named Barb, grinned when Evelyn's first mug cracked in the kiln. "Imperfection's the point," Barb said. "Keeps it human." Evenings, she read novels she'd bought years ago but never opened, their pages yellowed but inviting. She joined a book club at the library, hesitantly at first, sharing thoughts on Toni Morrison over tea with strangers who became less strange each week. Rita pushed her to try therapy. "You've been through a war, Ev." A counselor from APS's referral list, a soft-spoken woman named Dr. Lynn, helped Evelyn unpack the guilt that clung like damp moss. "You didn't fail him," Dr. Lynn said in their second session. "You gave him tools he chose not to use." One night, Evelyn found an old photo album in the attic, her and Tom at 25, Jake as a toddler splashing in Puget Sound. She traced their smiles, letting herself grieve the family she'd lost twice, once to cancer, now to betrayal. But grief wasn't the only thing stirring. There was space now, for her. She enrolled in an online writing course, drafting stories about resilient women in rainy towns. The words flowed, tentative but hers. Outside, the rain softened, and Evelyn felt something new, not just solitude, but possibility. March brought the first hints of spring to Seattle, crocuses pushing through the soil, cherry blossoms budding along the Burke-Gilman Trail. But for Jake Herper, the season felt like endless winter. Released from King County Jail after posting bail with help from a shady bondsman, he crashed on a friend's lumpy couch in Ballard, the no-contact order barring him from his childhood home. The charges hung over him like storm clouds: felony theft and false reporting. His public defender, a harried young attorney named Ms. Chen, laid it out bluntly in a fluorescent-lit consultation room. Plea deals on the table: probation, restitution, mandatory gambling addiction treatment. Fight it, or you risk prison time. Jake nodded numbly, the reality sinking in. Sarah had ended things for good, packing his stuff into garbage bags left on her doorstep. His job prospects? Zero. Who hires a guy with pending felonies? Nights were the worst. Alone in the dark, the springs digging into his back, Jake replayed every bad bet: the Talilab casino lights, the online poker apps that drained his accounts, the lies he told himself that one big win would fix everything. The ring? Pawned for half its value to cover bail fees, the sapphire now sitting in some shop window for strangers to admire. One rainy afternoon, staring at his phone's cracked screen, Jake scrolled to Evelyn's contact. The no-contact order flashed in his mind, but desperation overrode caution. He dialed from a burner app, heart pounding. She answered on the third ring. "Hello? Mom, it's me." His voice cracked like a teenager. "I know I'm not supposed to call, but I need to say I'm sorry. For real this time." Silence stretched, broken only by distant traffic on her end. "I hit bottom," he continued, words tumbling out. "Lost Sarah, lost everything. The gambling, it wasn't just fun anymore. It controlled me. I blamed you, but it was me. All me." Evelyn's voice was quiet, guarded. "I'm listening. I'm starting treatment. Court-ordered, but I want it. Gamblers Anonymous, meetings in Fremont, and therapy. I see now how I used you, took advantage because you'd always bail me out." He choked up. "I don't expect forgiveness, just needed you to know I'm trying to change." Another long pause. Then, "I'm glad you're getting help, Jake, truly. But trust takes time, and boundaries stay until they're earned back." He got it. He whispered, "I love you, Mom." "I love you too," she said softly. "Take care of yourself." The line clicked dead. Time limit reached. Evelyn hung up and sat in the quiet living room, Tom's old recliner empty beside her. Outside, a light February snow dusted the evergreen trees. She thought was the boy who used to beg for one more story at bedtime, now facing felony charges because she'd finally said enough. Rita's words echoed. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection. For the first time, Evelyn believed it. The legal wheels were turning, and there was no turning them back. Whatever came next, diversion program, probation, trial, she'd face it without enabling him anymore.
Spring fully arrived in April, with Seattle's cherry blossoms carpeting sidewalks in pink snow. Jake's court date resulted in a plea deal, 2 years probation, full restitution of the $7,000, paid in monthly installments from his new warehouse job, mandatory Gamblers Anonymous attendance, and continued individual therapy. The judge lifted the no-contact order but kept the restraining order's spirit alive. Any financial requests had to go through the probation officer. Evelyn agreed to supervised family counseling, suggested by Dr. Lin. The first session took place in a neutral office in Greenwood, a sunlit room with 2 comfortable chairs angled toward a third. Jake arrived early, dressed in clean jeans and a button-down shirt he'd clearly ironed. His hair was cut short, the patchy beard gone. He looked older, but in a healthier way. Eyes clearer, shoulders less hunched. The therapist, a calm, middle-aged man named Dr. Patel, started gently. "Let's begin with what each of you needs to feel safe moving forward." Jake spoke first, voice steady but low. "I need to own what I did. I stole from you, Mom. I lied. I weaponized the state against you when you finally said no. I was drowning in addiction and resentment, and I dragged you down with me." He paused, swallowing hard. "Dad's death hit me harder than I admitted. I leaned on you like a crutch instead of learning to walk. I felt entitled because you were all I had left." Evelyn listened, hands clasped in her lap. When it was her turn, the words came slower. "I need to admit my part. I enabled you for years, paying consequences so you wouldn't feel them. I thought it was love, but it kept you stuck. I was terrified of losing you the way I lost your father. Saying no felt like abandonment." She met his eyes, but it wasn't. It was the hardest act of love I've ever done. They met weekly. Some sessions were raw, Jake recounting the shame of jail, Evelyn describing the terror of the APS investigation. Others were quieter, sharing small victories. Jake's 30-day gambling-free chip, Evelyn's first published short story in a local senior literary journal. One evening, after a session, they walked together to a nearby cafe, neutral ground. Jake bought her coffee with his own debit card, a small but deliberate gesture. They sat outside under budding trees. "I'm proud of you," Evelyn said, suddenly, "for showing up, for doing the work." Jake's eyes glistened. "I'm proud of you too, Mom, for not giving up on yourself." It wasn't perfect. Trust remained fragile, rebuilt one honest conversation at a time. Jake stayed in his own apartment now, a tiny studio in Fremont, paid for with warehouse wages. He called every Sunday, short check-ins that slowly grew longer. Evelyn no longer flinched at the phone ringing. Boundaries held, but the door, cautiously, carefully, began to open. May sunshine finally broke through Seattle's perpetual clouds, turning the Puget Sound into a sheet of glittering blue. Evelyn Harper stood at SeaTac's departure 8, a small carry-on at her feet, boarding pass for Portland in hand. Her first solo trip in over 20 years. No Jake to worry about, no emergencies to anticipate, just her, a rented coastal cottage in Cannon Beach, Oregon, and 7 uninterrupted days. She'd booked it on impulse, after reading about Haystack Rock in her book club. "Go," Rita had urged over coffee. "You've earned the horizon." Evelyn had laughed then, but now, as the plane lifted off, she felt a rush of something light and unfamiliar. Freedom. The cottage was perfect, cedar shingled, perched above the sand, with a deck facing the endless Pacific. Mornings, she walked the beach at low tide, wind whipping her silver hair, collecting agates and letting the cold waves numb her toes. She sketched the massive monolith of Haystack Rock at sunset, painted watercolors that surprised her with their boldness. Evenings, she read on the deck with a glass of Pinot Gris, the crash of surf drowning out old echoes of guilt. Back in Seattle a week later, tanned and wind-kissed, Evelyn felt changed. The house no longer echoed with absence, it hummed with possibility. She cleared the basement, donated Jake's old clothes, boxed keepsakes, turned the space into a bright writing room with a second-hand desk facing the backyard.
Sunlight poured through the window where his gaming posters once hung. She enrolled in an evening creative writing class at North Seattle College, her old alma mater. The professor, a published novelist in her 50s, praised her first submission, a short story about a widow reclaiming her garden after betrayal. Raw and honest, she called it. Evelyn blushed, but the words fueled her. Jake called on a Sunday, as agreed. His voice sounded steadier. "How was the trip, Mom?" "Life-changing," she admitted. "I feel lighter." "Good. You deserve that." A pause. "I got promoted to shift lead at the warehouse. Better pay, first restitution check in the mail tomorrow." "I'm proud of you," she said, and meant it. That summer, Evelyn downsized further, sold Tom's old tools, the rarely used china, furniture that gathered dust. The proceeds funded a new laptop and a stack of rating books. She started a blog anonymously, Silver Linings After 60, sharing stories of reinvention, boundaries, and late-blooming dreams. Readers trickled in, other widows, estranged parents, women finding their voice. Comments poured encouragement back to her. One evening, watching the sun dip behind the Olympics from her deck, Evelyn raised her coffee mug in a quiet toast. To Tom, who'd loved her fiercely, to Jake, who was finally growing, and to herself, the woman emerging from the shadows, stronger, braver, and beautifully unfinished. June's long evenings painted Seattle in golden light, the kind that made Lake Union shimmer like a postcard. Evelyn was in her new writing room, formerly Jake's basement, tapping away at a memoir chapter when the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. Rita was on a cruise. Jake had texted he'd be working late. Through the peephole, she saw Sarah standing on the porch, clutching a small gift bag, looking smaller than ever in an oversized sundress that stretched over a gentle, unmistakable baby bump. 5 months along, maybe 6. Evelyn's breath caught. She opened the door slowly. "Hi, Miss Harper." "Evelyn," Sarah corrected herself, voice barely above the hum of neighborhood lawnmowers. "I know this is out of nowhere. Can we talk? Just 5 minutes?" Evelyn hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in. Tea?" They settled in the living room, Sarah on the couch, Evelyn in Tom's old recliner. The gift bag sat between them like an unopened question. Sarah placed a hand on her belly. "It's Jake's. I found out a couple weeks after the hearing. I wasn't going to tell him at first, too much chaos. But he's been different, showing up to appointments, working steady, talking about responsibility in therapy." She met Evelyn's eyes. "I came to apologize properly, not just for the ring or staying silent. For everything. I let him convince you we owed you a future. I was scared and selfish." Evelyn listened, the old anger flickering but not catching fire. "That was a dark time for all of us. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I want to do better for this baby." She nudged the gift bag forward. Inside was a tiny hand-knit blanket, soft blue with a little sailboat pattern. "I made it myself, thought maybe for the nursery. Whether you want to be part of this or not, that's your choice." Evelyn unfolded the blanket, fingers tracing the careful stitches. A grandchild. The word felt both miraculous and complicated. "I won't let Jake use this baby to pull money from you," Sarah added quickly. "We're doing it on our own. State assistance, my new full-time job at the cafe. He's saving for a bigger apartment." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I appreciate you saying that. Boundaries stay, but..." I felt the shift inside me, the same instinct that once enabled, now tempered with wisdom. "I'd like to know my grandchild. Doctor appointments, ultrasounds if you're comfortable. Small steps, no financial support unless it's truly for the baby and agreed in advance." Sarah's eyes filled. "Really?" "Really." Evelyn managed a small smile. "Family's messy, but it's still family." They met an hour longer. Due dates, names. They were thinking Thomas if it was a boy. Sarah's plans for community college classes after maternity leave. When Sarah left, hugging Evelyn awkwardly over her bump, the porch felt warmer than when she'd arrived. That night, Evelyn texted Jake. "Sarah came by. We talked. I'm open to being a grandmother, on healthy terms. Proud of the man you're becoming." His reply came fast. "Thank you, Mom. I won't let you down again." Evelyn set the little blue blanket on the mantel beside Tom's photo. A new chapter. fragile but hopeful, knitting itself into their fractured story. Thanksgiving morning dawned crisp and clear, the rare kind of Seattle November day where Mount Rainier loomed majestic against a cloudless sky. Evelyn's kitchen filled with familiar scents, roasting turkey, sage stuffing, and pumpkin pie cooling on the rack. But this year, the table was set for 4, not 2 or 1. Jake arrived first, at noon sharp, carrying a grocery bag of fresh cranberries and a bottle of sparkling cider. He'd gained a little healthy weight, his warehouse job building muscle in his arms. "Happy Thanksgiving, Mom," he said, hugging her carefully, as if testing the waters. She hugged back, firm, real. Sarah came next, 7 months pregnant now, her belly rounding out a cozy maternity sweater. She handed Evelyn a Tupperware of homemade green bean casserole. "Old family recipe," she smiled shyly. "Figured we could use a new tradition." The baby, still nameless, gender a surprise, kicked visibly as Sarah settled into a chair. Evelyn placed a hand on the bump, feeling the flutter, and something inside her softened further. "Strong little one," she murmured. Dinner unfolded slowly, deliberately. Jake nodded immediately. "Anything." "No financial surprises," Evelyn began. "College fund contributions go through a 529 plan I control. Gifts for the baby are fine, but big things we discuss first. And if gambling ever creeps back," she looked at Jake. "It won't," he said firmly. 90 days clean, then 6 months, now over a year. Meetings every week. I'm not risking this." Sarah added, "We're on a budget app together. Everything transparent." Evelyn exhaled. "Good. And visits. Regular, but you two are parents first. I'm grandma, not safety net." Sarah reached across, squeezing Evelyn's hand. "We want you as grandma, not fixer, promise." Later, over pie and coffee on the porch, watching dusk settle over the neighborhood lights, Jake spoke quietly. "I used to think family meant you'd always bail me out. Now I get it. It means showing up, even when it's hard." Evelyn looked at them. Her son, sober and steady, Sarah, brave and growing, the unborn grandchild tying threads together. Family wasn't the perfect picture on the mantle anymore. It was this, scarred, mended, choosing each other anyway. As they left, Jake hugged her again. "Thanks for letting us in, Mom." She watched their taillights disappear, then turned back to the quiet house. It didn't feel empty. It felt full, of possibility, of boundaries held, and love earned. Family redefined, and stronger for it. December's chill settled over Seattle, holiday lights twinkling along Greenwood Avenue as Evelyn pulled into the DSHS parking lot one last time. A year had passed since that first alarming phone call from Adult Protective Services. Today's meeting was voluntary, a case closure review, and, at Maria Gonzalez's suggestion, an opportunity for Evelyn to share her story with new social workers. The conference room felt different now, warmer, less intimidating. Maria greeted her with a genuine hug. "You look great, Evelyn. Radiant, even." Mr. Patel and 2 younger caseworkers joined them, notebooks open. Maria began, "We're officially closing your file today. No findings of abuse or neglect, never were. But we invited you because your experience highlighted gaps in how we handle retaliatory reports from family members." Evelyn nodded, her folder thinner now, but still organized. She'd prepared notes, not for defense, but for advocacy. "I'm not here for pity," she started, voice steady. "I'm here because what happened to me happens to others, parents, mostly mothers, who finally set financial boundaries with adult children and get punished for it. My son used your system as a weapon when I refused to fund a $7,000 engagement ring he charged without permission." The younger workers leaned forward as Evelyn recounted the timeline. The theft, the false report alleging hoarding and self-neglect, the terror of home visits, the emotional toll. She described Jake's gambling addiction, the enabling cycle she'd finally broken, and the slow road to reconciliation. "What I needed most was someone to say early on, 'This sounds like retaliation. Here are resources for elder financial abuse, even when the abuser is family.' Instead, I felt like the suspect." Maria nodded. We're implementing new training because of cases like yours, screening for retaliatory motives, connecting victims faster to legal aid and support groups. Evelyn smiled faintly. Good, because no 65-year-old should fear losing her independence for saying no to theft. After the meeting, Maria walked her to the lobby. Any regrets? She asked. Only that I didn't set boundaries sooner, but I'm proud I held them. My son is in recovery now. We're rebuilding, slowly, honestly, and I've found my own voice again. That evening, Evelyn spoke at a senior center seminar on elder abuse awareness. 30 retirees listened as she shared her story. No names, just truth. Hands shot up afterwards, women with similar tales of entitled children, grateful to hear they weren't alone. Driving home under strings of Christmas lights, Evelyn felt the final knot loosen. The state's stamp of case closed wasn't just paperwork, it was vindication, validation, freedom. She parked in her driveway, the house glowing softly from the timer lights. Inside, the little blue baby blanket hung on the mantel, waiting for spring. Closure wasn't an ending, it was the solid ground she now stood on, ready for whatever came next. 1 year later, December 25, 2025, Seattle's winter rain had paused, leaving the air crisp and the Olympics dusted with fresh snow visible across the Sound. Evelyn Harper, now 66, stood in her living room cradling her 3-month-old grandson, Thomas James Harper, Tommy for short, while he gurgled against her shoulder, tiny fist tangled in her silver hair. The house smelled of cinnamon and pine from the modest Christmas tree in the corner. Jake and Sarah sat on the couch, exhausted but glowing, passing a bottle back and forth. Jake's warehouse uniform was swapped for a soft flannel shirt. Sarah's cafe apron hung by the door. They'd moved into a 2-bedroom in Fremont, paid for with their own paychecks and careful budgeting. "Look at him," Jake whispered, eyes soft as he watched his son. "He's got Dad's nose." Evelyn smiled, rocking gently. "And yours stubborn chin." She handed Tommy back to Sarah, who settled him for a feed under a nursing cover. Boundaries had held. Evelyn contributed to a college fund monthly, but diapers, formula, and rent stayed firmly on Jake and Sarah's ledger. It worked. Beautifully. On the coffee table sat the proceeds of the infamous ring, finally returned through a police restitution program and sold at auction. The check went straight into Tommy's 529 plan, seeded with enough to grow into a solid start. Symbolic justice, Evelyn called it. Jake called it motivation. "How's the book coming?" Sarah asked, nodding toward the laptop on the desk. The Evelyn memoir, Fractured Bonds, A Mother's Journey Through Betrayal and Renewal, had found a small publisher. Advance copies arrived last week. Edits are done, release next spring. They want me to tour senior centers and libraries, talk about elder financial abuse, boundaries, second chances. Jake's face lit with pride. "You turned our mess into something that helps people, Mom. That's incredible." Later, they gathered around the tree for gifts. Simple, thoughtful. Jake handed Evelyn a framed photo, the 4 generations, her holding Tommy, Jake and Sarah beside them, Tom's old portrait tucked in the corner. "Family," he said simply, redefined but real. Evelyn's eyes misted. She gave Jake a leather-bound journal. "For your thoughts. You've got a story too." To Sarah, a gift card for art classes. "Follow that dream." For Tommy, a savings bond, and the little blue blanket Sarah had knitted 2 years earlier. As they left, Jake hugged her tight at the door. "Thank you for letting us in." She replied, "Thank you for earning your way back." Alone again, Evelyn stood on the porch, watching their taillights fade into the rainy twilight. The house was quiet, but no longer lonely. She'd reclaimed her life, writing, traveling, advocating, grandparenting on her terms. Inside, she poured a small glass of Merlot, raised it to Tom's photo. "We made it through the storm, love." Outside, the rain began again. Soft, cleansing. Evelyn smiled. From betrayal to renewal, from fear to strength, she'd found her brighter horizon, and it stretched wide, full of promise.